Welcome back, everyone. Today, we are strapping in, really, taking a trip into what feels like the future of sound. We're doing a deep dive into 3D audio, spatial audio, and, yeah, the big one, Dolby Atmos. We've spent time wading through, the pro forums, specialized music sites, Reddit, even ex-Twitter chats, basically where the real talk happens. Our mission today, cut through all that noise, give you the essential takeaways on immersive sound, what it really means for music, for games, for everything.
Yeah, and maybe the best place to start is just, what is it? When we talk about 3D audio, we're talking about tech that treats sounds not just as left or right signals, but as individual objects. Objects you can place anywhere in a sphere around the listener. Think above, behind, moving around.
Okay, so not just surround sound like we've had in cinemas for years.
It's related,
Yeah.
more precise, more granular. It's that object placement that lets you create these really enveloping, truly immersive experiences people talk about.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because, the first thing you see everywhere, the massive debate is this stuff? Is Atmos actually going to replace stereo? Like, is stereo done?
That is the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? And if you look at audio engineers, especially on forums like Radio Engineering, the excitement is there. They definitely talk about audio 3D as the future, particularly for immersive music.
Right, but future how? If it's so much better, why wouldn't it just take over? Why the hesitation?
Well, this is where the nuance kicks in. For certain listening environments,
Right.
headphones, a good home theater setup, spatial audio can be amazing. But the consensus seems to be it's not going to just wipe out traditional stereo, not anytime soon anyway. It's functioning more like an immersive layer, an option.
An immersive layer. Okay, so like an add-on, not a total format replacement.
Exactly. Think of it as an enhancement you can choose, rather than something deleting the original stereo mix.
But doesn't that make it feel optional? Like maybe a gimmick some people will just ignore, especially when you hear the audiophiles debating the actual quality.
That's the core challenge, definitely. If you dive into those audiophile discussions, you see this constant back and forth. Is Atmos actually worth it compared to, say, a pure, high-resolution, lossless stereo file?
Because Atmos involves compression, right? Lower bitrate.
Usually, yes.
Yeah.
To get all that spatial data through efficiently, there's often some level of compression involved, and that immediately bumps up against the traditional audiophile focus on, uncompressed, bit-perfect quality. KB piece matters to them.
So it's a trade-off. Potentially slightly lower data rate for the spatial magic?
Precisely. The argument for Atmos isn't necessarily about the raw data rate. It's about what that data does. It's about the feeling, the placement, the sense of space. That's where the magic is supposed to happen for the listener.
Okay, and speaking of magic, one thing that keeps popping up in forums, which sounds really cool, is using the spatial audio to sort of revive classic albums.
Oh, absolutely.
Giving them a 3D remix, adding depth, making things like vocals seem to kind of float without messing up the original vibe.
That's one of the most exciting creative applications, I think. Treating elements as objects gives mixers so much freedom. Instead of just panning left or right, you can position things precisely in 3D space. It puts you, the listener, right in the middle of the soundscape.
So it's not just sound coming at you from speakers.
Exactly. It's happening around you, which is a fundamental shift.
That difference, passive listening versus being in it, feels really key. And this is where it gets really interesting, I think. Moving beyond just listening to music. Let's talk about interactive stuff. AR, VR, games. Drawing from some game audio forums here.
Yes. This is arguably where 3D audio hits its full stride. We're seeing a lot of work integrating Dolby Atmos into augmented reality and virtual reality. Because in those contexts, you need sound in time, real time, as they say. The soundscape can't be static. It has to react dynamically as the user moves and interacts with the virtual world.
Right. I saw developers talking about concrete examples, like using a Mac Studio to power an AR art installation where the sounds literally change based on where you walk.
You move closer to a virtual object, the sound gets louder, changes position relative to you.
Or noises that actually seem to pursue you in, like, a horror game scenario? That sounds intense.
Definitely. And in gaming more broadly, Atmos integration with tools like Wellwise, which is the big industry standard sound engine, is huge. That compatibility lets developers create really detailed, personalized spatial audio through headsets. The game knows exactly where you're looking, where you're moving, and adjusts the sound accordingly.
So sound becomes more than just background music or effects. It's It's information, a mechanic almost.
Absolutely. If you can accurately hear footsteps above you or tell precisely where a sound is coming from off screen, that completely changes gameplay, immersion, everything.
Okay, so for people wanting to really get what this tech can do beyond just the theory, what should they listen to? You mentioned benchmarks.
Right. If you want to understand the potential, you need good examples. We looked at the albums that mixing engineers and expert sites consistently point to the ones they actually use to teach immersive production.
Makes sense. What are some standouts?
Well, you have to start with the iconic, almost psychedelic stuff. Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon. The Atmos mix is legendary for effects that literally swirl around you. Some engineers use the Spanish word, charon they spin.
Wow, I remember hearing that in stereo. Blew my mind. So if someone's testing their Atmos setup with that album, what's the key thing to listen for?
Okay, focus on the track time.
Yeah.
Specifically, the clocks at the beginning.
Uh-huh.
In stereo, they sound wide, spread out. In the Atmos mix, listen for individual clocks, seeming to chime from distinct points around the room. Maybe one feels like it's above your left shoulder, another behind you. That's the difference between just width and actual spatial placement. Volume versus location.
Got it. That makes total sense. What else?
For a more modern pop example, The Weeknd's Dawn FM gets mentioned constantly.
Oh yeah, heard good things about that mix.
It's praised for this really wide, expansive soundstage, but also for the way the vocals sometimes feel like they're just floating, disconnected from any specific speaker source. Very cool effect.
And classic rock keeps coming up.
Fleetwood Mac's Rumors.
Right.
Especially the track Go Your Own Way. People point to the vocal layering in the Atmos mix. How layering voices at different perceived depths and heights creates this richness that stereo, with its sort of flat plane, just can't replicate in the same way.
So it adds another dimension to the arrangement itself.
Exactly. And if you really want a direct comparison like an educational tool, the Atmos mix of the Beatles' Revolver.
Ah, Giles Martin's work.
Yes. Put on some good headphones, switch between the stereo version and the Atmos mix. The difference in placement, the clarity of where each instrument sits in 3D space, it's usually really obvious. Great way to understand the fundamental change.
And it's not just older stuff getting the treatment. We saw mentions of Taylor Swift's Midnights.
Right, using height elements more subtly, apparently, to enhance the mood.
And Lady Gaga's GUI being highlighted for really energetic, dynamic use of the 3D space, pushing sounds around.
Definitely, it shows the range. This tech isn't just for one genre, it's becoming a core part of modern production across the board.
Okay, so
What's fascinating here is you really hear engineers thinking differently. They're positioning elements in a true 360-degree field now. It's not just 180 degrees in front of you like stereo. They're treating the mix almost like a little virtual reality you can step into, which obviously boosts the storytelling, the immersion, makes it more real for you.
right. Which leads us nicely to the people actually making these mixes. Let's shift focus a bit. From the producer's perspective, what are the big challenges? Mixing in Atmos sounds like, well, a whole different ballgame.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's a massive workflow shift. When you're mixing in object-based audio, you run into specific technical hurdles. Configuring these complex multi-layer projects inside your digital audio workstation, like say Studio One, it's not straightforward.
How so?
Well, you can't just rely on traditional stereo buses and panning anymore. You're dealing with potentially dozens, even hundreds of individual sound objects that need to be routed and assigned specific coordinates in 3D space. It's complex.
And that complexity carries through to actually getting it to the listener, right? We saw mentions of workarounds, like that spatialized stereo feature on streaming platforms like Tidal.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's basically software trying to take a standard 2-channel stereo track and artificially expand it, trying to simulate an immersive feeling, even if the original mix wasn't actually done in Atmos.
Kind of like upscaling a video.
Sort of, yeah. It's a way to offer something immersive across more content, but it's not the same as a native Atmos mix, obviously. It points to the demand, though.
And it also points towards the hardware side, which feels like the real cutting edge now.
Definitely. The tech is evolving beyond just delivering a static mix. It's becoming adaptive.
Yeah, we picked up on chatter, especially on X-Twitter, about using built-in sensors, like the gyroscopes in newer MacBooks or in high-end earbuds like AirPods Pro.
Right, for dynamic head tracking.
Exactly. So you turn your head, and the soundscape stays put relative to the virtual space rather than turning with you. The sound adjusts in real time based on your movement.
Which makes the illusion much more convincing. It anchors the sound in space.
And it's getting more accessible, too, right? It's not just high-end niche stuff anymore.
No, not at all. We're seeing new consumer devices launching with this built in. Tablets coming out with like Dolby Atmos quad speakers, trying to deliver that spatial experience without headphones.
So it's becoming the expected standard for digital media, basically.
It seems to be heading that way. And you even see really niche or experimental content leveraging this like full binaural recordings, which are 3D audio specifically designed for headphones. Things like furry hypnosis content using it for deep immersion, or short films comparing game engines like Lost Sims versus Indoa Eye, showcasing spatial audio differences. It's popping up everywhere.
Okay, wow. So pulling all this together, what does this all mean? What's the big picture here?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that spatial audio, spearheaded by Atmos, is clearly moving beyond a niche interest. It's embedding itself in how we consume media, especially through streaming. It's breathing new life into classic albums. We mentioned Pink Floyd, the Beatles, but also things like the Rolling Stones' 40 Licks, getting Atmos mixes.
Yeah.
And it's shaping how modern pop sounds from day one. But maybe even more importantly, it's becoming almost essential for interactive media games, AR, VR. It's pushing sound design from being static decoration to being a core part of the experience.
And for you, the listener, this fundamentally changes things. It shifts how you experience music, games, maybe even films eventually. We're moving away from sound just being played at you passively towards something you're actively situated within, where your own movement, your environment starts to influence what you hear.
That's exactly. And building on that idea of movement responsive mixes, using gyroscopes in your earbuds to adjust the sound based on head movements.
Yeah.
Okay, take that a step further. If sound can react dynamically to your head and your headphones, consider this. How long until the mix itself becomes personalized, not just by your gear, but by the actual room you're in? Imagine the system using sensors to understand the dimensions, the acoustic reflections, maybe even track your movement within that room, and tailoring the spatial mix on the fly.
So the soundscape wouldn't just be around you.
It would dynamically know where you are, and maybe even what the room itself sounds like, constantly optimizing the immersion for that specific space and moment. That feels like the next frontier.